You think your toxic boss is ruining your career, but the truth is they're exposing a system you were never taught to see. Every morning you wake up already tired, not physically, mentally, because you know what's waiting for you. Another meeting where your work gets torn apart. Another conversation where the rules suddenly change. Another day of walking on eggshells trying to avoid triggering something you don't even understand. And the worst part, you start questioning yourself. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I deserve this. So you try harder. You double check everything. You stay late. You become more careful, more obedient, more silent. But nothing changes. In fact, it gets worse. Because the more you try to prove your worth, the more they seem to find reasons to break it. And slowly, something inside you starts collapsing. Your confidence, your clarity, your identity. You're no longer working to grow. You're working to survive. And that's where most people get it wrong. They think the solution is to fix their performance, to become better, faster, more perfect. But the real problem isn't your work. It's the game you don't realize you're playing. A toxic boss doesn't operate on logic. They operate on control. Unpredictability is their weapon. Confusion is their strategy. Because when you don't know the rules, you can't win. And when you can't win, you become easier to control. That's why the instructions change. That's why feedback contradicts itself. That's why you're praised one day and humiliated the next. It's not inconsistency. It's design. They are not measuring your performance. They are testing your reaction. They want to see how far they can push you before you break. Because once you react emotionally, you lose. You lose leverage. You lose credibility. You lose control. You think the problem is that you're not doing enough. The reality is, you're playing a game where effort doesn't determine the outcome. And the moment you realize this, everything shifts. Because now you stop trying to win their approval. And you start protecting your position. This is the moment where you detach. Not emotionally numb, but strategically calm. You stop taking things personally. Not because it doesn't hurt, but because you understand something deeper. Their behavior was never about you. It was never about your work. If someone else sat in your position, they would face the same treatment, different details, same pattern, same outcome. Because toxic behavior doesn't need a reason. It creates one. And once you see this clearly, you gain something powerful. Clarity. Clarity that allows you to stay calm when they expect you to react. Clarity that allows you to respond instead of defend. Clarity that turns chaos into something predictable. If this hits, comment 1 below. Because here's where it gets deeper. Most people think strength means pushing back aggressively, calling them out, standing your ground emotionally, but that's exactly what traps you. Because emotional reactions are visible. They can be used against you. They can be framed, twisted, and turned into proof that you're the problem. Real power is quieter than that. It's controlled, measured, invisible. You respond with what looks like compliance, but is actually strategy. You don't argue. You don't defend. You don't explain too much. You say things like, I'll review this and follow up. Let me confirm the priorities. I'll send a summary after this meeting. Simple, neutral. But behind that neutrality, you're doing something critical. You're creating a record. You're turning chaos into documented patterns. Because in a toxic environment, memory is weak, but documentation is power. You start writing everything down. Every instruction, every change, every contradiction, every public criticism. Not emotionally, not dramatically, just facts, dates, words, action. Because toxic systems rely on one thing, your confusion. The moment you remove confusion, you remove their advantage. And something interesting happens. You stop doubting yourself because now you have evidence, not feelings, not assumptions, proof. Proof that you're not the problem. Proof that the situation is unstable. Proof that the game is rigged. And that proof becomes your armor. But here's the truth most people don't want to hear. You cannot fix a toxic boss. You cannot outwork them. You cannot earn their respect. Because the system rewards control, not fairness. That's the part no one tells you. Companies don't always promote the best leaders. They often promote the most politically effective ones. The ones who manage perception. The ones who maintain power. The ones who know how to survive, not how to lead. That's the system you're in. And once you understand that, you stop expecting fairness. You start thinking strategically. You choose your battles. You don't react to everything. Because reacting to everything makes you predictable. And predictable people are easy to control. Instead, you pick what matters. The moments that affect your time, your reputation, your boundaries. And you frame everything professionally, not emotionally. not personally, but in a way that aligns with performance. You don't say, I don't want to work weekends. You say, I perform best when I can fully recharge. That allows me to deliver stronger results during the week. Same boundary, different power, because now you're speaking the language the system understands. Results, performance, value. And when you do this consistently, something shifts, not in them, but in you. You stop feeling trapped because you realize you were never completely powerless. You were just playing without understanding the rules. But let's go even deeper, because the real danger of a toxic boss isn't the stress, it's the transformation. You start shrinking, you stop speaking up, you stop taking initiative, you start choosing safety over growth. And over time, you become a smaller version of yourself, not because you lack ability, but because you adapted to survive. That's the hidden cost. And if you stay too long, that version becomes permanent. You don't just lose a job opportunity, you lose your edge, your confidence, your identity. And that's a price most people don't realize they're paying until it's too late. So you have to make a decision, not emotional, not reactive, but honest. Can you stay in this environment without losing yourself? If the answer is yes, then you stay strategically. You document, you detach, you build relationships outside their influence. You quietly position yourself for your next move. You use the experience as training, because whether you realize it or not, you are learning. You're learning what bad leadership looks like. You're learning how power is used and abused. You're learning what never to become. And that knowledge is valuable because one day you'll be in a position of authority and you'll remember exactly how this felt and you'll choose differently. But if the answer is no, if this is breaking you, if it's affecting your health, your relationships, your sense of self, then you leave. Not dramatically, not impulsively, but decisively, because no opportunity is worth losing yourself. No paycheck is worth your sanity. No title is worth becoming someone you don't recognize. That's the reality most people avoid. They wait, they hope, they endure until they're forced to leave, broken. But you don't have to do that. You can choose, you can plan, you can move before the damage becomes permanent. Because in the end, this was never just about your boss. It was about understanding the system, understanding yourself, and deciding what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not. Because once you see the game clearly, you stop being the victim of it, and you start playing it on your terms. If this changed how you think, consider subscribing.